Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone. Welcome back to the live studios here at Wisteria Cottage, otherwise known as College, because there's a lot of educating going on around here these days. As we read Srimad-Bhagavatam every day, working through it, hearing carefully, discussing, and becoming enlightened. Prabhupada said that if you learn the Bhagavatam, the whole Bhagavatam, it's better than having 12 PhDs, because you'll know about everything, all topics possible to be known by a human being, which are favorable to human society. All right, let's first begin with that wonderful prayer we read every day from Sanatana Goswami. It's called Srimad-Bhagavata Mahima Stotram, and it goes like this. Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths. You are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabho Kalidvandoditaditya Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshaksharayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madhika Bando Matsangin Madguro Mahadana Mannisdadaga Madbhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu, sadhu tadayan atini chuchatakada hanamun chigadachin mam premnarit kantayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, we're in the third canto, second chapter, beginning with the 17th verse. Uddhava is continuing his ecstatic reverie, remembering Krishna, because Vidura, who has been on pilgrimage, doesn't know that Krishna left this world, or that his dynasty also left the world. He doesn't know about the battle at Kurukshetra and the results. So now, he's asking how all those personalities are. Not all of them, but the major ones, his relatives and friends. And as soon as he asks, Uddhava becomes overwhelmed in separation from Krishna. And in ecstatic love is remembering Krishna and just telling about Krishna. And he comes back from that reverie and speaks. And that's what's going on right now. Text 17. Lord Krishna begged pardon from his parents for their, Krishna's and Balaram's, inability to serve their parents' feet due to being away from home because of great fear of Kamsa. Krishna said, "Oh mother, oh father, please excuse us for this inability. All this behavior of the Lord gives me pain at heart." Purport. It appears that Lord Krishna and Baladev were both very greatly afraid of Kamsa, and therefore they had to hide themselves. But if Lord Krishna and Baladev are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, how is it possible that they were afraid of Kamsa? Is there any contradiction in such statements? Vasudev, due to his great appreciation for Krishna, wanted to give him protection. He never thought that Krishna was the Supreme Lord and could protect himself. He thought of Krishna as his son. Because Vasudeva was a great devotee of the Lord, he did not like to think that Krishna might be killed like his other children. Morally, Vasudeva was bound to deliver Krishna into the hands of Kamsa because he had promised to turn over all his children. But out of his great love for Krishna, he broke his promise. And the Lord was very pleased with Vasudeva for his transcendental mentality. He did not want to disturb the intense affection of Vasudeva, and thus he agreed to be carried by his father to the house of Nanda and Yashoda. And just to test the intense love of Vasudeva, Lord Krishna fell down in the waters of the Yamuna while his father was crossing the river. Vasudeva became mad after his child as he tried to recover him in the midst of the rising river. These are all glorious pastimes of the Lord, and there is no contradiction in such manifestations. Since Krishna is the Supreme Lord, he was never afraid of Kamsa, but to please his father, he agreed to be so. And the most brilliant part of his supreme character was that he begged pardon from his parents for being unable to serve their feet while absent from home because of fear of Kamsa. The Lord, whose lotus feet are worshipped by demigods like Brahma and Shiva, wanted to worship the feet of Vasudeva. Such instruction by the Lord to the world is quite appropriate. Even if one is the Supreme Lord, one must serve his parents. A son is indebted to his parents in so many ways, and it is the duty of the son to serve his parents, however great the son may be. Indirectly, Krishna wanted to teach the atheists who do not accept the supreme fatherhood of God. And they may learn from this action how much the Supreme Father has to be respected. Uddhava was simply struck with wonder by such glorious behavior of the Lord, and he was very sorry that he was unable to go with him. Text 18. Who, after smelling the dust of his lotus feet, even once, could ever forget it? Simply by expanding the leaves of his eyebrows, Krishna has given the death blow to those who were burdening the earth. Purport. Lord Krishna cannot be accepted as one of the human beings, even though he played the role of an obedient son. His actions were so extraordinary that by the simple raising of his eyebrows he could deliver death blows to those who were burdening the earth. Text 19. You have personally seen how the king of Chedi, Shishupal, achieved success in yoga practice, although he hated Lord Krishna. Even the actual yogis aspire after such success with great interest by performance of their various practices. Who can tolerate separation from him? Purport. Lord Krishna's causeless mercy was exhibited in the great assembly of Maharaj Yudhishthira. He was merciful even to his enemy, the king of Chedi, who always tried to be an envious rival of the Lord, Because it is not possible to be a bona fide rival of the Lord, the king of Chedi was extremely malicious toward Lord Krishna. In this way, he was like many other asuras, such as Kamsa and Jarasandha. In the open assembly of the Rajasuya sacrifice performed by Maharaj Yudhishthir, Shishupal insulted Lord Krishna, and he was finally killed by the Lord. Interesting side note. Krishna didn't kill him right away. He let him go on and on, one blasphemy after another, because he had gotten a benediction. I don't remember the exact story, but Krishna had given him that benediction, that he could consult him 100 times without reaction. And as soon as he hit number 101, Krishna just went whoop, and cut off his head with a Sudarshan chakra. And as Shishupal saw the Sudarshan chakra coming to him, his heart changed, and he felt devotion for the Lord. And that's what gave him that special liberation. It was the last birth. He was either Jai or Vijay, I can't remember which one. And he had gone, this was the third birth. So he was going back to the spiritual world. And he had agreed to be the enemy of Krishna for 3 births, instead of 7 births of his devotee, because that way he could get back there sooner. But it was seen by everyone in the assembly that a light flashed out of the body of the king of Chedi and merged into the body of Lord Krishna. This means that Chediraj achieved the salvation of attaining oneness with the Supreme, which is the perfection most desired by jnanis and yogis, and for which they execute their different types of transcendental activities. It is a fact that persons who are trying to understand the supreme truth by their personal endeavors of mental speculation or mystic powers of yoga achieve the same goal as others who are personally killed by the Lord. Both achieve the salvation of merging into the Brahmajyoti rays of the transcendental body of the Lord. The Lord was merciful even to his enemy, and the success of the king of Chedi was observed by everyone who was present in the assembly. Vidura was also present there, and therefore Uddhava reminded him of the incident. Text 20. Certainly others who were fighters on the battlefield of Kurukshetra were purified by the onslaught of Arjuna's arrows, and while seeing the lotus-like face of Krishna, so pleasing to the eyes, they achieved the abode of the Lord. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, appears in this world for 2 missionary purposes: to deliver the faithful and to annihilate the miscreants. But because the Lord is absolute, his 2 different kinds of actions, although apparently different, are ultimately one and the same. His annihilation of a person like Shishupala is as auspicious as his actions for the protection of the faithful. All the warriors who fought against Arjuna, but who were able to see the lotus-like face of the Lord on the battlefront, achieved the abode of the Lord, exactly as the devotees of the Lord do. The words pleasing to the eyes of the seer are very significant. When the warriors from the other side of the battlefield saw Lord Krishna at the front, they appreciated his beauty, and the dormant instinct of love of God was awakened. Shishupal saw the Lord also, but he saw him as an enemy and his love was not awakened. Therefore Shishupal achieved oneness with the Lord by merging into the impersonal glare of his body called the Brahmajyoti. Others who were in the marginal position, being neither friends nor enemies, but slightly in love with Godhead, by appreciating the beauty of his face, were at once promoted to the spiritual planets, the Vaikuntha Lokas. The Lord's personal abode is called Goloka Vrindavan, and the abodes where his plenary expansions reside are called the Vaikunthas, where the Lord is present as Narayana. Love of Godhead is dormant in every living entity, and the entire process of devotional service unto the Lord is meant for awakening this dormant, eternal love of Godhead. But there are degrees of such transcendental awakening. Those whose love of God is awakened to the fullest extent go back to the Goloka Vrindavan planet in the spiritual sky. Whereas persons who have awakened to love of Godhead by accident or association are transferred to the Vaikuntha planets. Especially there is no difference, material difference. Essentially, there is no material difference between Goloka and Vaikuntha. But in the Vaikunthas, the Lord is served in unlimited opulence, whereas in Goloka, the Lord is served in natural affection. This love of God is awakened by the association of pure devotees of the Lord. Here the word partastraputa is significant. Those who saw the beautiful face of the Lord on the battlefield of Kurukshetra were purified first by Arjuna when he made his onslaught of arrows. The Lord appeared for the mission of diminishing the burden of the world, and Arjuna was assisting the Lord by fighting on his behalf. Arjuna personally declined to fight, and the whole instruction of the Bhagavad Gita was given to Arjuna to engage him in the fight. As a pure devotee of the Lord, Arjuna agreed to fight in preference to his own decision, and thus Arjuna fought to assist the Lord in his mission of diminishing the burden of the world. All the activities of a pure devotee are executed on behalf of the Lord, because the pure devotee of the Lord has nothing to do for his personal interest. Arjuna's killing was as good as killing by the Lord himself. As soon as Arjuna shot an arrow at an enemy, that enemy became purified of all material contaminations and became eligible to be transferred to the spiritual sky. Those warriors who appreciated the lotus feet of the Lord and saw his face at the front had their dormant love of God awakened, and thus they were transferred at once to Vaikuntha Loka, not to the impersonal state of the Brahmajyoti, as was Shishupal. Shishupal died without appreciating the Lord, while others died with appreciation of the Lord. Both were transferred to the spiritual sky, but those who awakened to love of God were transferred to the planets of the spiritual sky, transcendental sky. And then according to Vishwanath and Jiva Goswami, then Shishupal from there went back to his position, his original position in the Vaikuntha planets. Uddhava seemingly lamented that his own position was less than that of the warriors on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, because they had attained to Vaikuntha, whereas he had remained to lament the disappearance of the Lord. Text 21. Lord Sri Krishna is the Lord of all kinds of threes, and is independently supreme by achievement of all kinds of fortune. He is worshipped by the eternal maintainers of the creation, who offer him the paraphernalia of worship by touching their millions of helmets to his feet. Purport. Lord Sri Krishna is so mild and merciful, as described in the above verses, and yet he is the Lord of all kinds of threes. He is the supreme Lord of the three worlds, the three qualities of material nature, and the three Purushas, Karunadakashayi, Garbhodakashayi, and Kshirodakashayi Vishnu. There are innumerable universes, and in each and every universe there are different manifestations of Brahma, Vishnu, and Rudra. Besides that, there is the Sheshamurti, who bears all the universes on his hoods, and Lord Krishna is the Lord of all of them. As the incarnation of Manu, he is the original source of all Manus in innumerable universes. Each universe has manifestations of 504,000 Manus. He is the Lord of the three principal potencies, namely Chit Shakti, Maya Shakti, and Tatastha Shakti. And he is the complete master of 6 kinds of fortune: wealth, strength, fame, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation. There is none who can excel him in any matter of enjoyment, and certainly There is no one greater than him. No one is equal to or greater than him. It is the duty of everyone, whoever and wherever one may be, to surrender completely unto him. It is not wonderful, therefore, that all the transcendental controllers surrender to him and make all offerings of worship. Text 22. Therefore, O Vidura, does it not pain us, his servitors, when we remember that he, Lord Krishna, used to stand before King Ugrasena, who sat on the royal throne, and submit explanations before him, saying, O my Lord, please let it be known to you. Purport. Lord Krishna's gentle behavior before his so-called superiors, such as his father, grandfather, and elder brother, his amiable behavior with his so-called wives, friends, and contemporaries, his behavior as a child before his mother Yashoda, and his naughty dealings with his young girlfriends cannot bewilder a pure devotee like Uddhava. Others who are not devotees are bewildered by such behavior of the Lord, who acted just like a human being. This bewilderment is explained by the Lord himself in the Bhagavad Gita as follows. Abhajananti mam mudha manushim tanam ashritam param bhavamajananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. Persons with a poor fund of knowledge belittle the personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, not knowing his exalted position as the Lord of everything. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord has explained his position clearly, but the demoniac atheistic student squeezes out an interpretation to suit his own purpose and misleads unfortunate followers into the same mentality. Such unfortunate persons merely pick up some slogans from the great book of knowledge, but are unable to estimate the Lord as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Pure devotees like Uddhava, however, are never misled by such atheistic opportunists. Alas, how shall I take shelter of one more merciful than him, Lord Krishna, who granted the position of mother to the she-demon Putana, although she was faithless and had prepared deadly poison to be sucked from her breast? Purport. Here is an example of the extreme mercy of the Lord, even to his enemy. It is said that a noble man accepts the good qualities of a person of doubtful character, just as one accepts nectar from a stalk of poison. In his babyhood, he was administered deadly poison by Putana, a she-demon who tried to kill the wonderful baby. Because she was a demon, it was impossible for her to know that the Supreme Lord, even though playing the part of a baby, was no one less than the same Supreme Personality of Godhead. His value as the Supreme Lord did not diminish upon his becoming a baby to please his mother, devotee Yashoda. The Lord may assume the form of a baby or a shape other than a human being, but it doesn't make the slightest difference. He is always the same Supreme. A living creature, however powerful he may become by dint of severe penance, can never become equal to the Supreme Lord. Lord Krishna accepted the motherhood of Putana because she pretended to be an affectionate mother, allowing Krishna to suck her breast. The Lord accepts the least qualification of the living entity and awards him the highest reward. That is the standard of his character. Therefore, who but the Lord can be the ultimate children? What a lesson to be learned from this. If we want to be devotees of Krishna, we should make it as easy as possible for others to become devotees of Krishna. And here it's described how to do that. In a nutshell, the Lord accepts the least qualification of a living entity and awards him the highest reward. That is the standard of his character. And therefore, that should become the standard of our character if we want to represent him. Therefore, who but the Lord can be the ultimate shelter? Text 24. I consider the demons who are inimical toward the Lord to be more than the devotees, because while fighting with the Lord, absorbed in thought of enmity, they are able to see the Lord carried on the shoulder of Garuda, the ton of Tarksha, Kashyapa, and carrying the wheel weapon in his hand. Purport. The Asuras who fought against the Lord face to face got salvation due to their being killed by the Lord. This salvation of the demons is not due to their being devotees of the Lord. It is because of the Lord's causeless mercy. Anyone who is slightly in touch with the Lord, somehow or other, is greatly benefited, even to the point of salvation, due to the excellence of the Lord. He is so kind that he awards salvation even to his enemies because they come in contact with him and are indirectly absorbed in him by their inimical thoughts. Actually, the demons can never be equal to the pure devotees. But Uddhava was thinking in that way because of his feelings of separation. He was thinking that at the last stage of his life, he might not be able to see the Lord face to face, as did the demons. The fact is that the devotees who are always engaged in the devotional service of the Lord in transcendental love are rewarded many hundreds and thousands of times more than the demons by being elevated to the spiritual planets, where they remain with the Lord in eternal blissful existence. The demons and impersonalists are rewarded the facility of merging into the Brahmajyoti effulgence of the Lord, whereas the devotees are admitted into the spiritual planets. For comparison, one can just imagine the difference between floating in space and residing in one of the planets in the sky. Prabhupada. The pleasure of the living entities on the planets is greater than that of those who have no body and who merge with the molecules of the sun's rays. The impersonalists, therefore, are no more favored than the enemies of the Lord. Rather, they are both on the same level of spiritual salvation. Text 25. The personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, being prayed to by Brahma to bring welfare to the earth, was begotten by Vasudeva in the womb of his wife Devaki in the prison of the king of Bhoja. Purport. Although there is no difference between the Lord's pastimes of appearance and disappearance, the devotees of the Lord do not generally discuss the subject matter of his disappearance. Vidura inquired indirectly from Uddhava about the incident of the Lord's disappearance by asking him to relate Krishna Katha, or topics on the history of Lord Krishna. Thus Uddhava began the topics from the very beginning of his appearance as the son of Vasudeva and Devaki in the prison of Kamsa, the king of the Bhojas at Mathura. The Lord has no business in this world, but when he is so requested by devotees like Brahma, he descends to the earth for the welfare of the entire universe. This is stated in the Bhagavad Gita. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chaduskritam dharma sangstapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Text 26. Thereafter his father, after being afraid of Kamsa, brought him to the cow pastures of Maharaj Nanda, and there he lived for 11 years, like a covered flame, with his elder brother Baladev. Purport. There was no necessity of the Lord's being dispatched to the house of Nanda Maharaj out of fear of Kamsa's determination to kill him as soon as he appeared. It is the business of the Asuras to try to kill the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or to prove by all means that there is no God, or that Krishna is an ordinary human being and not God. Lord Krishna is not affected by such determination of men of Kamsa's class. But in order to play the role of a child, he agreed to be carried by his father to the cow pastures of Nanda Maharaj, because Vasudeva was afraid of Kamsa. Nanda Maharaj was due to receive him as his child, and Yashoda Mai was also to enjoy the childhood pastimes of the Lord. And therefore, to fulfill everyone's desire, he was carried from Mathura to Vrindavan just after his appearance in the prison house of Kamsa. He lived there for 11 years and completed all his fascinating pastimes of childhood, boyhood, and adolescence with his elder brother, Lord Baladev, his first expansion. Vasudeva's thought of protecting Krishna from the wrath of Kamsa is part of a transcendental relationship. The Lord enjoys more when someone takes him as his subordinate son who needs the protection of a father than he does when someone accepts him as the Supreme Lord. He is the father of everyone, and he protects everyone. But when his devotee takes it for granted that the Lord is to be protected by the devotee's care, it is a transcendental joy for the Lord. Thus, when Vasudeva, out of fear of Kamsa, carried him to Vrindavan, the Lord enjoyed it. Otherwise, he had no fear from Kamsa or anyone else. And he proved it. Text 27. In his childhood, the Almighty Lord was surrounded by cowherd boys and calves, and he thus traveled on the shore of the Jamuna River through gardens densely covered with trees and filled with vibrations of chirping birds. Purport. Nanda Maharaj was a landholder for King Kamsa, but because by caste he was a Vaishya, a member of the mercantile and agricultural community, he maintained thousands of cows. It is the duty of the Vaishyas to give protection to the cows, just as the Kshatriyas are to give protection to the human beings. Because the Lord was a child, he was put in charge of the calves with his cowherd boyfriends. These cowherd boys were great rishis and yogis in their previous births, and after many such pious births, they gained the association of the Lord and could play with him on equal terms. Such cowherd boys never cared to know who Krishna was, but they played with him as the most intimate and lovable friend. They were so fond of the Lord that at night they would only think of the next morning when they would be able to meet the Lord and go together to the forests for cowherding. The forests on the shore of the Jamuna are all beautiful gardens full of trees of mango, jackfruit, apples, guava, oranges, grapes, berries, palm fruit, and so many other plants and fragrant flowers. And because the forest was on the bank of the Jamuna, naturally there were ducks, cranes, and peacocks on the branches of the trees. All these trees and birds and beasts were pious living entities, born in the transcendental abode of Vrindavan, just to give pleasure to the Lord and his eternal associates, the cowherd boys. While playing like a small child with his associates, the Lord killed many demons, including Agasura, Bakasura, Pralambasura, and Gardabasura. Although in Vrindavan he appeared just like a boy, He was actually like the covered flames of a fire. As the small particle of fire can kindle a great fire with fuel, so the Lord killed all these great demons, beginning from his babyhood in the house of Nanda Maharaj. The land of Vrindavan, the Lord's childhood playground, still remains today, and anyone who visits these places enjoys the same transcendental bliss, although the Lord is not physically visible to our imperfect eyes. Lord Chaitanya recommended this land of the Lord as identical with the Lord, and therefore worshipable by the devotees. This instruction is taken up especially by the followers of Lord Chaitanya, known as the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. And because the land is identical with the Lord, devotees like Uddhava and Vidura visited these places 5,000 years ago in order to have direct contact with the Lord, visible or not visible. Thousands of devotees of the Lord are still wandering in these sacred places of Vrindavan, and all of them are preparing themselves to go back home, back to Godhead. 28. When the Lord displayed his activities just suitable for childhood, he was visible only to the residents of Vrindavan. Sometimes he would cry and sometimes laugh, just like a child, and while doing so, he would appear like a lion cub. Purport. If anyone wants to enjoy the childhood pastimes of the Lord, then he has to follow in the footsteps of the residents of Braja, like Nanda, Upananda, and other parental inhabitants. A child may insist on having something and cry like anything to get it, disturbing the whole neighborhood. And then immediately, after achieving the desired thing, he laughs. Such crying and laughing is enjoyable to the parents and elderly members of the family. So the Lord would simultaneously cry and laugh in this way and merge his devotee parents in the humor of transcendental pleasure. These incidents are enjoyable only by the residents of Braja, like Nanda Maharaj, and not by the impersonalist worshippers of Brahman or Paramatma. Sometimes, when attacked by the forest and by demons, Krishna would appear struck with wonder, but he looked on them like the cub of a lion and killed them. His childhood companions would also be struck with wonder, and when they came back home, they would narrate the story to their parents, and everyone would appreciate the qualities of their Krishna. Child Krishna did not belong only to his parents, Nanda and Yashoda. He was the son of all the elderly inhabitants of Vrindavan, and the friend of all contemporary boys and girls. Everyone loved Krishna. He was the life and soul of everyone, including the animals, the cows, and the calves. Text 29. While herding the very beautiful cows and bulls, who were the reservoir of all opulence and good fortune, the Lord used to blow his flute, and thus he enlivened his faithful followers, the cowherd boys. Purport. As he grew to 6 and 7 years old, the Lord was given charge of looking after the cows and bulls in the grazing grounds. He was the son of a well-to-do landholder who owned hundreds and thousands of cows, and according to Vedic economics, one is considered to be a rich man by the strength of his store of grains and cows. With only these two things, cows and grain, humanity can solve its eating problem. Human society needs only sufficient grain and sufficient cows to solve its economic problems. All other things are but these two are artificial necessities created by man to kill his valuable life at the human level and waste his time in things which are not needed. Lord Krishna is the teacher of human society, personally showed by his acts that the mercantile community or the Vaishyas should herd cows and bulls and thus give protection to the valuable animals. According to Smriti regulation, the cow is the mother and the bull the father of the human being. The cow is the mother because just as one sucks the breast of one's mother, human society takes cow's milk. Similarly, the bull is the father of human society because the father earns for the children, just as the bull tills the ground to produce food grains. Human society will kill its spirit of life by killing the father and the mother. It is mentioned herein that the beautiful cows and bulls were of various checkered colors, red, black, green, yellow, ash, etc. And because of their colors and healthy smiling features, the atmosphere was enlivening. Over and above all, the Lord used to play his celebrated flute. The sound vibrated by his flute would give his friends such transcendental pleasure that they would forget all the talks of Brahmananda, which is so much praised that they would forget which is so much praised by the impersonalists. These cowherd boys, as will be explained by Shukadeva Goswami, were living entities who had accumulated heaps of pious acts, and thus were enjoying with the Lord in person, and were hearing his transcendental flute. The Brahma Samhita confirms the Lord's blowing of his transcendental flute. Venum quanantam adavinda dalaya taksham barhavatangsam asitam buddhasundarangam kandarpa koti kamaniya vishesha shobham govindam adipurusham tamaham bhajami. Brahmaji said, I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who plays on his transcendental flute. His bodily color resembles a fresh black cloud. Oh, his eyes are like lotus flowers. He is decorated with peacock plumes. His bodily color resembles a fresh black cloud, and his bodily features are more beautiful than millions of cupids. These are the special features of the Lord. Text 30. The great wizards who were able to assume any form were engaged by the king of Bhoja, Kamsa, to kill Krishna. But in the course of his pastimes, the Lord killed him as easily as a child breaks dolls. See, these were not ordinary demons. When the demons, who at that time lived in one place and the demigods lived in another place, opposite places of the universe, found out what was going on, they incarnated. When the demons heard that Krishna told Brahma that the demigod should incarnate and help him, they decided, okay, we're going to duke it out with the demigods and we're going to go down there. So these people, these demons who came to kill Krishna, they were not ordinary. They were great demons from lower planetary systems who came, and they had all these mystic powers. Purport. The atheist Kamsa wanted to kill Krishna just after his birth, but he failed to do so. But later on he got information that Krishna was living in Vrindavan at the house of Nanda Maharaj. He therefore engaged many wizards who could perform wonderful acts and assume any form they like. All of them appeared before the child Lord in various forms, like Aga, Baka, Putana, Shakata, Trinavarta, Denuka, Gardaba. And they tried to kill the Lord at every opportunity. But one after another, all of them were killed by the Lord, as if he were only playing with dolls. Children play with toy lions, elephants, boars, and many similar dolls, which are broken by the children in the course of their playing with them. Before the Almighty Lord, any powerful living being is just like a toy lion in the hands of a playing child. No one can excel God in any capacity, and therefore no one can be equal to or greater than him, nor can anyone attain the stage of equality with God by any kind of endeavor. Jnana, Yoga, and Bhakti are three recognized processes of spiritual realization. The perfection of such processes can lead one to the desired goal of life and spiritual value. But that does not mean that one can attain a perfection equal to the Lord's by such endeavors. The Lord is the Lord at every stage. When he was playing just like a child on the lap of his mother, Yashoda Mai, or just like a cowherd boy with his transcendental friends, he continued to remain God, without the slightest diminution of his 6 opulences. Thus, he is always unrivaled. Text 31. The inhabitants of Vrindavan were perplexed by great difficulties because a certain portion of the Yamuna was poisoned by the chief of the reptiles, Kaliya. The Lord chastised the snake king within the water and drove him away. And after coming out of the river, he caused the cows to drink the water and proved that the water was again in its natural state. 32. The Supreme Lord Krishna, desiring to utilize the opulent financial strength of Maharaj Nanda for worship of the cows, and also he wanted to give a lesson to Indra, the king of heaven. Thus he advised his father to perform worship of Go, or the pasturing land, and the cows with the help of learned brahmanas. Since he is the teacher of everyone, the Lord also taught his father, Nanda Maharaj. Nanda Maharaj was a well-to-do landholder, an owner of many cows, and, as was the custom, he used to perform yearly worship of Indra, the king of heaven, with great opulence. This worship of demigods by the general populace is also advised in the Vedic literature, just so people can accept the superior power of the Lord. The demigods are servants of the Lord, deputed to look after the management of various activities of universal affairs. Therefore, it is advised in the Vedic scriptures that one should perform yagyas to appease the demigods. But one who is devoted to the Supreme Lord has no need to appease the demigods. Worship of the demigods by common men is an arrangement for acknowledging the supremacy of the Supreme Lord, but it is not necessary. Such appeasement is generally recommended for material gains only, as we have already discussed in the 2nd canto of this literature. One who admits the supremacy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead does not need to worship the secondary demigods. Sometimes, being worshipped and adored by less intelligent living beings, the demigods become puffed up with the power and forget the supremacy of the Lord. This happened when Lord Krishna was present in the universe, and thus the Lord wanted to give a lesson to the king of heaven, Indra. He therefore asked Maharaj Nanda to stop the sacrifice offered to Indra and to use the money properly by performing a ceremony worshipping the cows and the pasturing ground on the hill of Govardhan. By this act, Lord Krishna taught human society, as he has instructed in the Bhagavad Gita also, that one should worship the Supreme Lord by all acts and by all their results. That will bring about the desired success. The Vaishyas are specifically advised to give protection to the cows and their pasturing ground or agricultural land instead of squandering their hard-earned money. That will satisfy the Lord. The perfection of one's occupational duty, whether in the sphere of duty to oneself, one's community, or one's nation, is judged by the degree to which the Lord is satisfied. Text 33. O sober Vidura, King Indra, his honor having been insulted, poured water incessantly on Vrindavan, and thus the inhabitants of Braj, the land of the cows, were greatly distressed. But the compassionate Lord Krishna saved them from danger with his pastime umbrella, the Govardhan hill. Text 34. In the 3rd season, of the year, the Lord enjoyed as the central beauty the assembly of women by attracting them with his pleasing songs in an autumn night brightened by moonshine. Purport. Before leaving the land of cows, Vrindavan, the Lord pleased his young girlfriends, the transcendental gopis, in his Rasa Leela pastimes. Here Uddhava stopped his description of the Lord's activities. Thus the Bhaktivedanta and the Bhaktivedanta purports of the third canto, second chapter of Srimad-Bhagavatam, entitled Remembrance of Lord Krishna. So we hear the pastimes of Lord Krishna in different places in the Bhagavatam, especially in the first three cantos. Even though the details and everything are given in the 10th canto, we have to wait until we're properly purified by hearing and understanding and applying the principles of spiritual life, exemplified by the personalities, devotees of the Lord, in various places, under various circumstances, with various forms of the Lord, various expansions of the Lord, incarnations of the Lord. And when we're fully purified, then we can enter into the 10th canto. And Prabhupada says in the preface to this great literature that there's only one qualification for hearing this great transcendental literature. He says, the only qualification one needs to study this great book of transcendental knowledge is to proceed step by step, cautiously, and not jump forward haphazardly like with an ordinary book. It should be gone through chapter by chapter, one after another. The reading matter is so arranged, with its original Sanskrit text, its English transliteration, synonyms, translation, and purports, so that one is sure to become a God-realized soul at the end of finishing the first 9 cantos. So, by reading the Bhagavatam like this, like we're doing, very carefully, very not so fast, but not so slow, and then reflecting on it, thinking deeply about it, purifying our hearts and our activities, our thinking, our feeling, our willing, our actions, our relationships, our duties, and everything. After we've learned what the Lord likes, then we can be beacons and help others. Bhagavatam. Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. So we'll stop here and we'll start on chapter 3 tomorrow night. The comment that Rati Manjari made, I was in Houston, I think, so it was quite a long time ago. But it stuck in my mind. She said, Maharaj, because you're there every night, reading every night, after some time, I'm beginning to feel like this is real. The Bhagavatam is real. Krishna is real. So this is what it means by constant. It can mean 24/7. That's the perfection. But this is the next best thing, is to hear regularly every day like this, the Bhagavatam, in the association of pure devotees. As we heard a little earlier, that one of Krishna's glorious qualities is that he takes the least qualification and he gives the highest perfection. He's so kind, we can't even conceive of it. But we get a drop of that conception as we hear just how Krishna responds and how he organizes and arranges things for his devotees, so that they can see clearly the difference between the material world and the spiritual world, between matter and spirit, between non-devotees and devotees. Okay, so let us have some reflections. I think I started already without realizing it. Huh?
Should I bring?
Yeah, bring one of these. Let's get it for the atmosphere. Thank you.
Reflection sort of leads into a question.
We have Radharamine, who usually is so intelligent. He's going to make a reflection which leads to a question. Go ahead. I'm going to read it out because your voice is a little soft, as is your character. Soft and sweet. Yeah. Go ahead.
I was hearing a little earlier in the reading how Krishna didn't have to something like that. How Krishna didn't have to apparently be in fear and kind of go off to Vrindavan, but he did it as a pastime to please his devotees. Elsewhere, Prabhupada says that Krishna performs pastimes to give us subject matter to relish. And I've also heard that the question of the is that at least the baby pastimes, they don't actually take place in Goloka Vrindavan.
Not true. You won't find that written anywhere. You won't find a verse that says that anywhere. You have to bring the text of any commentary or any verse that says that directly. But there are comments by the acharyas that explain how it is that the pastimes within the material world seem to be sweeter. You know? Like Jiva Goswami says all the pastimes that go on in the material world go on in the spiritual world. He doesn't qualify it like that in the Sandarbhas. Mm-hmm. But Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he says that just like we're lighting this candle and the room is like lit, so the candle doesn't, it's nice, but if the room was completely dark, then the candle would look more beautiful, actually. So the material world, because it's dark by nature, it's covered by the modes of nature. When Krishna comes and exhibits his pastimes, they appear to be more, effulgent to the people in the material world because, like the candle flame, looks more beautiful in the dark than in a light place. Or a jewel, if you put a jewel on a solid dark blue or black background, it's effulgent and its aspects look more brilliant. But if you put it on a background where it's all different colors and varieties of shapes and forms and put it there, it won't stand out as much. So I don't know. Gopi Pranadana Prabhu, I heard him talk about this just the other day. That's why I'm repeating what he said. All the mentality that's there are there. Like in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, there's a description of how Krishna goes to Mathura and kills Kamsa. There's no actual killing, but there's a sense of it because that's what he's doing. And then he comes back, and then sometime later he goes again to Mathura and kills Kamsa. And it's the same emotions, the same, all the emotions are there. But there's no danger and there's no death and there's no real suffering that comes from those activities.
But does he perform daily pastimes of taking birth?
There are places in Dham at times when he does, yeah. He may not do it in the same time, in the same way as he does when he comes into the time and space of the material world and agrees to appear to grow and then only be in one place at one time and therefore have to go from one place to another, and his devotees in Mathura have to wait for him to come there to see him. And then to Dwarka they have to wait. Well, he takes everybody with him actually from Mathura to Dwarka. But in the spiritual world, he can be everywhere at once, perform all of his pastimes all at once. It's not limited by time and space. So we can't really say, there's no evidence in the Shastra that says that Krishna doesn't appear, to be like a baby, or he doesn't have that pastime of appearing. There's no time and space. Gopi was really he was trying to analyze what activities you might want to do in terms of service, that you can do better in the material world than in the spiritual world. And he rejected all the things that we can do with decorating and cooking and all those kinds of services, because in the spiritual world, the best cooks, the ingredients have no bugs in them. There's no impurities whatsoever. We can't even imagine what it tastes like. I mean, we can't even imagine senses that can even taste it. So, therefore he said, the two things, he could only think of two things that we can do here that we can't do there, and that's kill demons and preach. There's no preaching going on up there because everyone's a devotee. Preaching to become a devotee. I mean, there's differences of opinion, there's competition to please Krishna better, but it's not on that level at all. Then again, Krishna's pastimes are unlimited. He can do anything, so who knows? I think there's certain things that we can't know except if we go there. Like, there was one devotee in San Francisco who asked Prabhupada the question, why is Krishna blue? You know what Prabhupada's answer was? He didn't hesitate a second. He said, why don't you ask him? And in that way, indirectly, he said, you can't know that until you go there. You can't know that kind of intimate detail, from here. You can't even see the color. You can't even imagine what the color is. All we can do is compare it to the most beautiful things that we know about in the material world. So that's our problem when we try to understand Krishna with, through the material mind and senses. It's really not possible. But we can hear, the pastimes as they are and get an idea. And when we become actually attracted to them spontaneously, then Krishna from within the heart will reveal everything.
The way I really understood that today, actually, from hearing about when he was on, it was so beautifully put by Prabhupada as well, the way that he was walking on the Yamuna, and just the description, you could just really kind
Poetic.
of... Poetic.
Prabhupada is so poetic,
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
But it really, it made sense. That's the thing.
Yeah, that's a very nice point you made about making sense.
Yeah.
Because some of the things seem to be illogical
Right.
or contradictory. And then, but when you understand it properly, it's not actually. There's a transcendent logic. There's a trans logic. I don't know how to put it. Transcendent logic, but it's not. Once we understand, it makes complete common sense to us.
It's no longer almost a conception. It is a conception, but it becomes something that you can almost see.
Yeah, visualize. You can visualize it. Yes, yes.
And when he and when it was saying text 22, 23, when it's at Lord Krishna's gentle behaviour before his so-called superiors, behaviour of his so-called wives, friends and contemporaries, his behaviour as a child before his mother Yashoda, and his naughty dealings with his young girlfriends cannot bewilder a pure devotee like Uddhava. It makes sense.
Yeah, because that's what love does. Well, they say, even in the material world, we say love is blind. Beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. All these things are perverted reflections of the understanding of spiritual affection and spiritual relationship in the spiritual world. That's what we want. But unfortunately, whoever we get those relationships with, they get old and then die. And so do we. And so we can't fulfill that need, that genuine constitutional need we have for love and affection.
And we can't, I guess, we can't share that love with a human until we've tasted the love through the writings and of Krishna.
We can't understand. We can't exchange that love with a human materially with anybody, anytime, in any place, because love is eternal. And to have love for a person or love for a thing, that thing must be eternal. And therefore, if you develop your love for Krishna and the residents of Vrindavan, whose forms are eternal, and Krishna's form is eternal, then we get a taste. And then when you leave your body, I just got a report that one of the devotees in Dallas just left his body, Kadamba Muni. He was from Pennsylvania, and he was a criminal before, literally. And he became a devotee, but he couldn't give up this kind of way of dealing with others. And so he could never, reciprocate it. But at the end, and he would reject, he didn't want everybody to be around him, he just shut himself off. But at the end, as he was leaving, the devotee just poured in. They started chanting into his ear, and he became, he changed. Now that's real love, that's real friendship. Not that the person gets in a state of difficulty that he's not even nice to look at, because he's just, everything's going up and he's going, and the devotees are just there, pouring out their love and chanting in their ear. And we saw a video of it with Gunagrai Maharaj, his disappearance. It was so glorious. Yes. Dr. Matt's going to give us a reflection, but it's a little far away, so I'm going to repeat it. Don't mind.
I just thought it was interesting how the symbol of the bowl is used as.
He thought it was interesting as a symbol of the bull is used as prosperity.
We use that in terms of the stock market today, like a bull market.
Yeah.
So I just thought it was funny that's been a symbol, or not funny, but just interesting that's been.
Well, that symbolism is coming from the reality, and we're hearing about the reality.
Yeah.
It's not actually a symbol.
I know where it came from now.
Yes, now you know where it came from. Because in the human society, when the bulls were being used instead of tractors, they were a part of the family. And they have this thing about, in West, they have this thing about this is torturing the animals, making them do that kind of work. They don't realize that's what they're meant to do. That's what they're happy doing. If you live with the cows and the bulls and the calves, we do in Govardhan, you'll see them. When you go there, you'll see them. And every day, when a bull is not, conceiving a calf, or when a bullock is not doing some work, tilling the field or carrying things and doing things that are needed to be done, they get depressed, they get ornery, it's like a human being. If he's not doing something, he becomes mentally ill. The bulls become mentally ill when they're not actually working like that. So this whole thing about it's cruel to the animals, it's just a speculation. It's sentiment. It's mundane, moral, mundane sentiment. It has nothing to do with helping the bull. You live with the bulls, and you can see. You see the big calf comes from the cow. The cow immediately just takes care of the calf completely. You can't get near. You can't try to help her do that. She'll get out of here. This is my baby. I'm going to take care of her or him. And licks it clean, and makes sure it's okay, and then gives its udder. First thing they do is they try to go to the udder. They know. Just like a human child, if you just leave it alone, it goes right to the breast. In home births, my child was born. I was there when my child was born. He knew right where to go. It was amazing.
Are cows like one form, like a few forms before human form?
No, the cow, the next birth from the cow is a human in the mode of goodness. If you're around cows and live with cows, you will see that they're completely in goodness. They're so docile. They're so peaceful. They actually never get agitated, except sometimes when it's natural. They have to have, to conceive a baby. They get kind of upset, and they, But other than things like that, when you take the child away from them, she'll get very upset. These are emotions of the soul. But in terms of, they hardly ever sleep. They sleep just a few minutes a day. And they're just such noble creatures. And if you just, a little boy with a little stick here, they just go where they want to go. So docile and so, caring. It's amazing when you actually live with them. And you don't see, nobody knows anymore what's this like in human society. That's why it's become an animal society. We need to say these things to the people. We don't need to, make our words such it's going to make them feel better. They've got all these activists who try. There's some truth to it. They are, abusing the cows and calves, but they don't know what to do to the souls and the bodies of the cows and the calves to help them. They just know how to punish the people who are doing it, and to try to stop them from doing it. But I'm not saying that none of them would know what to do to take care of the cows and feed them, but they don't have. That's not a part of their activism, At least as far as I can see and heard.
The more I'm hearing from the Bhagavatam, it's just like the best story in the world. It's just like this.
Exactly.
But it's just every time I hear it, it's just I'm getting another little glimpse of it.
Yes.
It's just revealed.
Yes.
Revealed.
And every time you read it, it will be more.
Yeah.
This is the mystical potency of Krishna. The Bhagavatam is Krishna. That's why when in the prayers that we read before, Sanatana Goswami says, it is non-different than Krishna. First he says it's an image of Krishna, and then he says it's non-different than Krishna. It's the same. And every time, what can I say? I've been reading it constantly for 46 years, but not as constantly as I have for the last 5 years. And every time I read it, it's like the first time. There's no boredom, none whatsoever. And the more you do it every day, the more you come to that platform, and it becomes more real to you, more like that. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And when your love for Krishna awakens fully, and that's what it was talking about in that one purport, then you will fall head over heels in love with Krishna, and then there will be nothing else. Nothing else to do, nothing else to talk about, nothing else to do but try to convince people where they got everything, where they got all these sensual delights and all the things that we can do and to give us, sense of well-being and whatever. They don't know where it came from. Therefore, they don't know how to express their full love. They'll appreciate a musician because he makes nice music. They'll appreciate an artist because he paints a picture just like a rose. But the person who made the original rose, and the painting of the rose is never like the rose. I mean, it may look nice, but it doesn't smell, and you can't put it in the ground and make another one. This is the goal of life, to hear and chant and discuss the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and His pure devotees in the association of devotees. And that program we went to that was a different atmosphere. Here everybody's into it right from the beginning, but here all the students are like looking around, what's this, what's going on here? The beginning of the atmosphere, it was one thing. Then by the end, it was completely different. The atmosphere completely changed.
Can I ask a question, please? Do you think that because everyone's...
Question from Bhakta Paul.
Everyone is asked, everyone is essentially looking for happiness. So that when people, you mentioned about the crowd was that way, do you think that as people hear from the Srimad-Bhagavatam maybe for the first time, or the Bhagavad Gita or the other texts from Srila Prabhupada, that they feel that?
It depends.
Okay.
If they have a demoniac attitude, then they will be repulsed. But even Shishupal, that was the point of using Shishupal as an example, and how Krishna benedicts people if somehow or other they hear about him and somehow or other they see his beauty or something about anything, the slightest thing. That's what we heard. Just the most minuscule, ability, or the minuscule good quality is expanded by Krishna, and he'll give the best thing if somebody just shows a little interest. And Prabhupada used to say, when the demons would attack us, and they used to more than now, they would, like when that big movement of the deprogrammers came out, and there was a profession that developed because of it to deprogram devotees and try to, this was back in 74, 75, 76, 77. Yeah. And so then sometimes articles would appear, and Prabhupada would just take the article and he would count the number of times that the word Krishna was spoken. And he said, oh, this is very good. This demon is chanting Krishna's name. He's making spiritual advancement. Very good. Continue. And one time, one of the devotees said I don't remember exactly how this went, but someone said, the devotee asked, chant Hare Krishna. And he said, I'm not going to chant Hare Krishna. And then the devotee started dancing. Oh, why? You already started. Everything's wonderful. And then the person was like, I think it's in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Yeah, it's in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. One of Lord Chaitanya's devotees was going door to door, and that was a pastime.
They had one of those. I found a video on YouTube where they had a deprogrammer, and they were talking to a devotee on like a television program.
That was Ted Patrick.
It just made that guy look so foolish. Like it was just, you were embarrassed for the deprogrammer a little bit,
Yeah.
But I saw that you were talking about the demonic personalities. when I was distributing books, I went up to one guy, and he goes, "Get away from me! I'm eating my hot dog." And I just thought, that's a demoniac personality right there.
Yeah.
And then, the next guy I talked to, he couldn't read, but I had him put his hand on one of the books and say Hare Krishna, and he just lit up.
Yeah.
So you could see the difference.
Yeah. Exactly. And most people are innocent like that, even if they're acting like the mind. So they're just influenced by. So if you give them the right influence, they change. And even if it's fewer now, we should just look for those persons and invest our energy there, particularly. Anyway, Hare Krishna. So I think I'll stop now. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, all of you, for your wonderful reflections and questions, discussion of Krishna consciousness. It's the goal of life, it's the nectar of life, it's the nourishment of life, and we should become absorbed as much as possible. Thank you all for coming to this daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. It's nectar. Please share it. You show how we care for others by sharing. We care by sharing. Hare Krishna. Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Uddhava ki jai. The pastimes of Lord Krishna ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. Hari Hari Bo.